we've been having teachings by Geshe Yeshe Lundrup this week, and a lot of questions have come up, and we've been having a lot of discussion. So what I've noticed is that as Westerners, we want to find the one right answer. Yeah, just tell us the right answer. Because we're so used to, in our educational system, you just have to learn the material. You don't have to necessarily think about it. You just have to be able to say the words and the one right answer and give that back to the teacher so you get a good grade. But learning Buddha Dharma is very different. Okay, so first of all, our teachers don't expect us to understand everything the first, second, third, or even 100th time we hear it, because understanding the teachings depends on our mind becoming more open, more receptive, and that changes as we purify and as we create merit. So we have to have a mind that's patient and recognizing that we will understand the teachings gradually over time, because understanding the Dharma isn't just understanding the words and the basic concepts. It entails really having it make sense conceptually, but also developing some understanding in here so that something shifts inside, so that it's not just knowing the right words to say. But we bring our habit in and we want one right answer. And often in the discussions we're having, there isn't one right answer. Okay, so we might start to understand that when we learn the tenets, because each tenet system describes things different and has different positions on it. Yeah, but when we start to learn the tenets, we hear, but the prasangika is the highest. So then our mind goes, well, I want the highest. That's the one right answer. But actually, when we're practicing to develop the correct view, they recommend starting with whichever tenet system makes sense to us at the most, at the moment, adopting that, and then operating out of that, and then slowly beginning to question it, and in that way progress to the next right answer. So you begin to see there isn't a right answer, because what you thought before turns out to be able to be refuted. Okay, but then when you get to the prasangika, you still want the one right answer according to prasangika. But then, yeah, if you study Chinese Buddhism, which, you know, it's Chittamatra, but they have a prasangika, Madhyamaka school, and the Tibetan Madhyamaka, it's not exactly the same. So which is the right one? Or even you look in the Tibetan, then you have the four Tibetan traditions, Nyingma, Kagyu, Gelu, and Sakya. So which one there is the one right answer? So His Holiness says they come to the same point, and that which is that emptiness and dependent arising are complementary, but how they get there sometimes is different. We want the one right one. Even we settle on one of the four traditions. Let's say you settle on the Gelu, for example, then you have different opinions coming up from Panchen Soman Drakpa, from Jetsung Chuki Gyaltsen, from Jamyang Shepa, yeah, from Guntong Rinpoche. Then you have a bunch of different views, And again, we want the right one. So at this time, this is the final time that we have to hopefully get it into our noggin that there's not one right answer, and that the path isn't about learning the one right answer. Geshe-la talked a little bit about this, I think it was on the first or second day, and he was saying that it's good to, and I'm elaborating on what he said here, that it's good to hear different answers to the same question or different positions, even within the same tenet system, because that makes you think. Okay. Now, thinking is not what we're necessarily used to in our educational system, which is geared toward passing exams. But this is a difference when you're trying to learn a spiritual path, is you have to think, okay? And you have to really analyze the different views, and you have to check in with yourself and compare what the different views are saying about how you feel what yourself is and how you feel how things exist. So you have to apply the teachings to your own life, okay, not just think about them intellectually. And this whole thing of having to think about the teachings is actually part of the education we get in the Dharma, because when we're forced to think about things, there's several good outcomes that come from it. First of all, we understand different people's way of looking and analyzing and assessing the whole problem. And even though we may choose one of those because it makes the most sense to us, we'll have also analyzed and investigated the other positions and understood the reasons why people asserted those. And that gives us more respect for those people, because we haven't just dismissed their position as out of hand. We just have thought about it, and maybe we saw some flaws in it, which helps us, see the validity in our position better. Or maybe we've become to see that the other position, if we look the other way, could be equally as valid. And that helps us, expand our mind to see different ways of seeing things. Okay, so all of this is part of our Dharma education. Yeah, it's not just about the one right answer, it's about learning to think, learning to respect diversity of ideas, okay, and respect the people who hold them. Yeah, no, I think that's about it. So it also means we have to develop some patience for our mind that says, just tell me the right answer. I don't, I remember one person came to see me some years ago, and he had trained in the Theravada tradition. And so we were talking about the Dharma. We had a very good conversation. And on some points, he had asked me about them. And I explained how we view those same things. And he said, well, I learned this in the Theravada tradition. And I said, well, think about everything and just, figure out what makes sense to you. And he said, I just want the run right answer. Please tell me that. And of course, I had to say, I can't, And anyway, even if I did, that wouldn't help you, because you need to learn how to think about these things and apply them to your own mind. Okay? So that's a good thing to try and remember as you do your studies. And also remember that no one's expecting you to remember and learn and understand everything at the first go around. Yeah, maybe you expect that of yourself, but your teachers are not expecting that of you. Okay? And then to conclude all of this and change the subject, it's really important to vote. And there is one right answer for that one, but I'm not supposed to tell you, because as religious organizations, we are not allowed to advocate for one candidate or another, but we can talk about positions and policies and bring an ethical perspective to thinking about different policies, and in that way, which policies we think are most ethical, most compassionate, and best able to guide the country. And then from understanding that, you can understand, or you can think about, who is the one right person for you, which I hope is the same as the one right person for me, but I can't tell you that. Okay, but I can advise that I think ethical conduct is really important, whether as individuals, as a country, as departments and agencies in our country, acting with ethical conduct, being fair, being honest, being truthful. Yeah, all of that applies to ethical conduct. Taking responsibility instead of shifting responsibility and blaming other people, but really owning what we say and what we do, and being willing to remedy the mistakes that we've made. So I think those are qualities that we learn in our spiritual practice, and they are just as applicable, I think, when we choose who we're going to vote for. So with that, I'll leave you. But please vote, it's quite important.
So given the polarization in the country here on everybody who seems to think that they're right, benefit to stepping into somebody else's worldview that seems to be antithetical to one's own view? I mean, what you just explained, I can see the point in the Buddha Dharma for me getting clear about where I am on the path. But when we're talking about the different political views and how we get to the same point, and how we're coming from such different, disconnected ways, is this, I want to say that, is there a benefit to that, to be able to look at what's happening in our country from very, very different points of view that seem to not resonate? I mean, I want to make some peace with my own confusion about this.
Yeah. Well, I think it's good to talk about policies, and people will have different views about policies. And one important factor of a democracy is that people have different views, and they discuss, and they hopefully will come up with something that's better than either of the two views. And if not that, come up with some kind of compromise position where both sides, or it's not usually two sides, it's usually more than that, feel that they've been heard. Okay? But there's that, and then there is the conduct, personal conduct of people running for office. So we have to see not only the people who have the kind of policies that we think are good, but also look at the personal conduct of these people, and are these people willing to talk to other people? Are they, and talk about policy in a reasonable way, and not blame people and criticize people. You can talk about policies and say policies, this doesn't work, or I don't think this will work, but you don't have to insult the people who hold those policies. And you don't want to make unfair accusations of people who have different policy alternatives than you do. Okay?
I think that we just lost the discourse around the policy, and we're far more right now invested in personality, and we've lost ourselves in the conversation. So.
Yes, I think we've gotten quite lost. Yeah. And it's good to return and try and talk about, you know, our values as a country and what we think is important, and come to some things that are respectful to, hopefully to everybody concerned in one way or another, even though nobody will probably get exactly what they want. But that's part of living in a democracy, is you're not going to get everything you want. If you want to get everything you want, then you have to become a dictator. Okay? You can't even be the follower of a dictator, because in a dictatorship, in a where there's one person in charge, in an autocracy, that one person gets their way. Everybody else doesn't. So that means you have to become the autocrat and the dictator if you want everything to go your way, you know? But otherwise, we live together with other people, and everybody has different ideas and different needs. And we can't even agree with ourselves half the time. We have our own internal civil wars going on about, should I do this or should I do that? So, we have to approach these things, I think, with more kindness towards everybody involved and more open-mindedness.
Sometimes people say, this is my truth, and you can't tell me what's true for me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think part of that is valid. Like, we each have
Mm-hmm.
to find our own truth, but to not hold it in a way like, I'm going to run you over, or don't you dare ask me to compromise.
Yeah.
Like, we have to be authentic to ourselves, but also realize that there's other people around us and make way for them and their views.
Yeah.
And maybe have some like higher aspirations that everybody can go towards.
Yeah.
Like in democracy, it's equality, it's fairness, it's justice, these broader issues that supposedly will contain each person's individual. This is what I think, this is right. Get out of my way. You can't tell me what's right or what's wrong.
I think often when people say, this is my truth, what they mean is, this is my personal experience. So as soon as we own it as our personal experience, then we're not trying to apply it to everybody else and saying that they should believe it. We're saying, this is my personal experience. Yeah. But we have to see that other people have different experiences. Also, I think a big problem we have is about information sharing, is that everybody gets different information and believes different information. And that creates a lot of confusion in people's minds. Because just on the raw facts of the situation, if people don't have access to correct information, which includes, various perspectives, then there's going to be a lot of confusion in terms of them forming policies. Because you hear this and then you hear that, and if you're not sure which is what actually happened, then it's difficult. So, but this is a function of technology and social media and everything like that. Now everybody says whatever they say, and then you have to check the sources from which you get information and see if they're accurate or not, and check the information itself too. So that makes it more difficult. In the olden days, we just all listened to the 6 o'clock news with Walter Cronkite. And basically, sometimes there were other people, but we got the same news. Now people don't even get the same news.